Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, I talk Tantra with Jaqueline Michelle. She is a self-love embodiment coach, Shibari practitioner, and sensualist. I'm so grateful for her content and so appreciative that she's here on the podcast to offer her perspective of living an expansive life. So thank you for being here, Jaqueline. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about your journey with becoming a self-love embodiment coach, your journey with Shibari, sensuality. How did you discover this world and this passion and purpose?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I absolutely love your work as well. And it's such an honor to be here on this platform.
Yeah.
I got into self-love and embodiment work from being on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. So I grew up with a lot of abuse around my femininity and my sexuality, and it created a lot of confusion in the way that I expressed with myself, both as a woman and as an erotic being. And from that came a lot of depression and years of self-harm. And at the time, I didn't really have any tools or resources on how to connect with myself in any way other than chaos. And at 18 or 19 years old, I kind of gave up, and I was like, okay, well, this is life and this is just how I'm going to feel. And when I was in college, my dance professor told me to go to a yoga class for extra credit. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll go to this yoga class for extra points on a test. And I went, and it was, by the first breath, the first downward dog, I was like, this is what it's like to connect and breathe with your body. And I when I say I became addicted to yoga, it was literally this full force of exploring what it was like to really be in my body and to feel and experience emotions without this intention, judgment, or an attachment story to it. And I think whenever we come from trauma, it's so easy to carry your story on the weight of your shoulders when anything else comes up in your life. And yoga and meditation really gave me that opportunity to pause and take a deep breath and reflect. And getting into yoga, it was really interesting because it was this beautiful introduction to my body for the first time, but it was also a way for my central nervous system to calm down, and my libido completely left. I felt like I was this very orgasmic, very sexual, very erotic person. And then when I started to regulate myself, my sex drive left, and I was very inorgasmic. I couldn't get wet, and I was 19 years old. And there was a lot of confusion and shame that came from this. And I was like, how is it that I'm understanding, how to breathe into my hamstrings, but I'm terrified of connecting with my partner? And so I went deeper into the journey, and I don't know how I found Tantra, but I am so glad I did. And it was really the yoni eggs and the crystal wands and really just self-pleasure in general. That was the introduction of mixing together spirituality and sexuality and selfhood. That's been a really big word for me, is just selfhood. And I kind of got into it with that and getting into self-pleasure. And for those out there who don't know what self-pleasure is, to me, it's really just setting up some time with yourself to connect with your body, to connect with your senses, to allow emotions to come up, and learning how to process and what I like to call alchemize them in an intentional way. But the first 2 years of that, I'm saying this with so much love, but a very ugly experience. I was really going through the motions of letting shame come up from my body. I was touching my breasts, and I was touching my hips and my butt and crying. And I was like, we're not talking about this portion of healing. We're not talking about this portion of sexuality. At the time, I wasn't in this lifestyle. So I wasn't surrounded by people that, knew the work and knew this information. And, little by little, I started working with yoni eggs, and I got deeper into Tantra. And from there, I started mixing together the hip rolls and the breath work and yoga. And little by little, I became orgasmic again, but not even just in the sense of being able to orgasm with my pussy. It was life had color again. I could hear music. I knew how to create. I got in touch with my worthiness. And so when people always ask me oh, how did you become so sensual? Were you always dancing? Were you always this? And I'm like, no, I was the complete, like very shut down, very scared, but it was through touching the parts of me that I had run away from that got me to where I am today. And I think that's such a big part about self-love. I love that we're in this space of, in this kind of decade of like taking care of yourself. People are setting boundaries, people are communicating, people are taking baths, and people are doing shadow work. And I fucking love that people are getting into the nitty-gritty of themselves to realize, oh, this is just all I have to do is shift this pattern. All I have to do is shift this belief system. And it seems scary and it seems tough, but it's really one of the most natural things that we can do, is getting out of our own way of believing, okay, cool, I am worthy. Yes, pleasure is here. My body is mine. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I got into Shibari as well through really loving BDSM, but not having a partner. And so I was like, I'm going to buy all the whips and the gag balls and the rope and add it to my self-pleasure practice. And it's been really transformative to really learn how to explore and make love to myself throughout this journey.
There are so many things that I loved about your answer that I just don't know where to go first. First of all, just the energy and the excitement, like, oh, I feel it viscerally. And you have such a beautiful vocabulary. The words that you use and the way that you place your words in relation to each other is just really intentional and simple yet powerful. I love selfhood. I think that's so powerful. As well, at the beginning, you said abuse of the of femininity or something like that. And I was like, that's exactly what I've experienced, but I've never heard it described in that exact, formation of words. So beautiful. And I'm obsessed with this idea of like loving BDSM and doing it on yourself. I haven't actually, that's not true. I have tied myself up and self-pleasured, and that's amazing. Highly recommend to the listeners, learn some self ties, get after it. But not so much other stuff. So anyways, it's just really amazing. I absolutely love all of this, resonate with it so deeply. And I think that, another thing that is really alive in your answer to me is just like the art of living. And I've known you really only in this iteration of yourself that's super embodied and like painting all the time and just living so beautifully and so artfully. And I just deeply appreciate having you as like inspiration for that on a daily basis. You're always sharing your new things, and it's so beautiful and feminine and incredible. For the listeners as well, just to kind of understand how Jaqueline and I know each other. So Jaqueline is partnered with Justin, who has been on the podcast a couple of times, 3 times. I think by the time this comes out, he'll be on here 3 times. So definitely look through for Justin Gottlieb. And Justin's also my co-facilitator at the Tantra Love Retreat, which Jaqueline has assisted at and will be assisting at in May. And she also gave us the incredible gift of doing like a short little Shibari demo for those interested, which was super amazing.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, watching Justin and Jaqueline and watching their relationship unfold for like the first 8 or 10 months or something of your guys' relationship, I was in and out of different partnerships. And I kept like looking at your partnership and thinking, that's kind of what I want. Like, obviously we all have different motivations and things, but like looking out in the world, I was like, there's not a lot of examples of something that I would like want in a partnership. But I looked at Justin and Jaqueline's and I was like, I definitely want some of that. Like there's something happening there that I would like more of. And yeah, and it's been a huge inspiration for me. So, anyways, all that being said, would love to give the mic back to you. So what does it mean to you to be a sensual being? Again, I love your words, and I love that you have this like new title of like sensualist. So what does it mean to you to be a sensual being?
Yeah, so I think of being a sensual being, I break it down into two components. I call it from the inside out and the outside in. So from the outside in, being a sensualist is just taking the time to connect with your five senses. And that can be really done in anywhere. It can be when you're waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth, or driving your car, or making love. And it's like just really setting that intentional time to be present. And then from the inside out, I consider it the components of feeling every single ounce of yourself. And I think of it from a physical and an emotional level. So we think of tension in the body, and we feel it in our shoulders, and we feel it in our traps and our hamstrings, and maybe even our ankles. And it's like taking the time to really stretch and open everything up. I think that the way we hold our body and the way that we present ourselves on a physical way is a really big illustration to how we feel on the inside. And then I also think of sensuality as feeling everything, feeling your anger, feeling the sorrow, feeling joy, feeling bliss. And I really think that, our emotions, like our body doesn't understand or really relate to anger and excitement differently. And so when you give yourself the space to really feel anger, you're also giving your body permission to feel excitement. And when you begin to contract or suppress one of those emotions, then the body begins to think, okay, we're suppressing all emotions. And so sensuality to me is like really giving yourself the space or the opportunity to feel everything that's going through you. And I think the big piece is without attachment, like feeling anger and let it out, cry it out, yell it out, but then let it go so that you can become like this clear container of everything else that needs to move through you.
I really love that definition of sensuality. I have a lot of people that ask me, what is the difference between sensuality and sexuality? And I have my own definition that's quite similar, but I really like the framework that you added, that there's like this inside and out, like there's like an inner, how did you say it was like?
I call it like, so the inside out. So like being able to feel like the tension or the openness in the body, like quite physically feel your muscular system, and then your emotions, and then the outside in, which is like just actual feeling, all the five senses.
Okay. I see. I love it. Okay. Nice. Great little framework. And with that, I feel like so much of that sort of feeling and that sensuality is really what makes like that art of living. And so I call myself a sacred intimacy mentor and muse. And I feel like you also identify really strongly with like this muse energy and this like creatrix also. So what does it mean to you to be your own muse?
I love it because I haven't actually thought of like, what does it mean to me? It's just, this is going to sound a little conceited, but in a juicy, I love myself. I love hobbies. I love like diving into, oh, today I want to dance and I want it to be like this. Today I want to tie. Today I want to paint. And I love seeing things that other people do where I'm like, oh, I want to do that, and then doing it. Like, I think being my own muse comes from being inspired by other people that are muse, and then embodying the things that I love from other people, which helps me love myself and express myself more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's conceited at all. I like to say like, it's not selfish, it's self-full. And to me, like I want everyone to feel that good about themselves. It's not about like, you should feel less strongly about yourself and think more about others. And it's like every person in the world, in my ideal world, would feel as strongly about themselves as you feel about yourself. And like that would make the world such a fucking better place just with that one simple shift, in my own opinion. And if anyone, but I also recognize that there's probably people listening to you saying that and are triggered and are like, yeah, that is conceited. And I know there's been past versions of myself that would have felt that way too, especially from such like a cool fucking girl, and when that's the case, when there is the opportunity for trigger, it's like, wow, that is the invitation for the self-love right there. Just like feeling that trigger and considering that. So
yeah. Step one, feel the trigger.
Exactly. Cool. So you've been working with rope for a while, and I'm curious to hear just like a little bit more of like, what does Shibari mean to you? I know that it's like more than just like tying knots. So I'd love to hear like just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk about the history of it as well. So before there was metal in Japan, police officers would actually use rope to arrest people, and they would put people in different binds and different positions depending on the severity of the crime, because different types of holds, like let's say you're in a TK, which is having your arms behind your back and your chest open, would make somebody feel ashamed and exposed. And so they learned that like putting people in different ties would provoke different emotions. And then we bring that over to the West and we take all that shadowy darkness and we eroticize it a little bit, and we add a little bit of kink and a little bit of healing. And now it's become this really beautiful, artistic, healing, sometimes sexual type of practice. And one thing that I love about the word shibari, or like the essence of shibari, if you think about a TK or a futomomo, it means the finishing of a particular tie. Shibari itself means the journey through the tie before you get to the knots. And I really love that because I think it's a beautiful euphemism for life. It's like we're never really complete. When you're playing with the rope, cool, you can finish off that tie, but you're going to undo it and begin to go somewhere else. And I really love that concept about shibari as well, is it really gives you the space to like mess up and explore and hold on to different parts of your body, or open up to different parts of your body as well. I lost my train of thought, but so that's kind of like shibari in a nutshell with that. And then I started self-tying about 2 years ago. And it's been really beautiful. There's 3 little tidbits that I would like love to share about my own personal experience. I think the first thing when I first started exploring it is like, it helped me a lot with like anxiety. You know, those like big weighted blankets that people put on themselves? It was really just like that. It was like this feeling of like being held, being compressed. And I was like, okay, it feels like a hug. This feels really good. And then there was other experiences that I had that, you know, I would put on like a hip harness, and it would accentuate my butt and it would accentuate my yoni, and I can really cup everything really nicely. And it felt really good to play with something in a way that accentuated my body and made me feel like just juicy and artful. And then there's other areas of my body that I would get into where I didn't like how I looked. You know, like sometimes if there's a little bit of pudginess and then you begin to tie around your torso and the roll comes out, and then, you know, sometimes those emotions come up of like, oh, this doesn't look cute. And I think it's been really cool to, I mean, I feel like I'll say this a million and one times throughout this conversation, is like to allow that to come up and be like, oh, okay, cool. Like my breasts don't look the best in this chest harness, but can I also just allow myself to be held in this way and to see that and to allow the emotions of it to come up? And sometimes like you're more than welcome to get out of the tie and say, okay, I recognize something's there. You don't always have to go into the trigger the second you realize it's there. And sometimes you can very gently and very slowly begin to get into it as well. But it's been a really like beautiful, very emotional, very cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely resonate with that feeling of being held by the ropes, and just like the sensation, like even as you're untying, like the way that the ropes kind of vibrate together, it's almost like, I don't know, it has this sort of like lulling sensation. And it's also just like an invitation to be with the movement of the rope. I don't know. And for me too, there's also this like ancestral piece with rope. Like rope is such a ancient tool, and to consider how rope has interacted with like the individuals in my lineage, whether it be from a place of like pain and I don't know, like prison imprisonment in some way, shape, or form, or even like as an actual tool to like get food for the family, or like I don't know, you know. It's like, so when I work with rope, I feel this like deep cellular sort of thing happening that's like inexplicable for me.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't work with it as much as you do. I really like it, but it is an art. It's something that like you go to and you practice and you deepen that skill with. And I really wish that I had more time with it. And I also wish that there were some more amazing teachers in Austin. There are some great teachers, but you have a course on it as well, right? So that's something that we can access.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on my Instagram, so Jack Mish. But it's super cool. I developed it a couple months ago, and it brings in sensual movement, somatic healing, and rope all together. And one thing that I really enjoy is like, so when I give a sensual Shibari session, for example, so I do a session where I tie somebody for an hour, but before we even get into the tying, I'm helping them get into the body through yoga, breath work, and just sensual movement in general, for two main reasons. One, I really want to make sure that somebody's connected with themselves before I put my hands on them. And two, just health reasons for the joints, making sure that everything's mobile and everything's like really warmed up before I hold them in place. And as I started to explore that with myself, I was like, oh, this is something really beautiful that people can bring into their own self-pleasure practice. So I break it down into 3 modules, and one is like sensual floor work. So tapping into the hip rolls, sexy splits, speed bumps, like that exotic floor work. I just a beautiful way of dancing. And then we get into Shibari as well, which is all the foundational pieces, all the foundational ties. And from the foundational things that is on there, you can really begin to explore and like go crazy. And then there's also somatic healing. So it's all about learning how to process and feel your emotions, and then intentionally deciding what you want to do with that energy in your body, whether you do it through breath work, movement, or rope.
Amazing. So anyone, anywhere can access this, which is so freaking cool. But you also do these in-person sensual Shibari sessions, and you shared a little bit about like what people could expect from it, but I'd love if you could speak a little bit more into that.
Yeah, it's still something I'm experimenting with. So I think like with every session, I'm just learning more and more. But I work with women. And everybody comes in with a different intention. Some women are wanting to feel held and they're wanting to surrender. Some women are wanting to be stretched and open up. And like I said, we spend the first hour really connecting to their intention, setting up boundaries, talking about both of our desires throughout the session. And then I help them get into their body. So I help them open up their chest and open up their hips and really just expand all of the fascia, all of the ways that our body kind of constricts itself in the muscular tissue. And then from there, we just go into a Shibari flow, and it's always really beautifully different. But it's all based on the floor. I'm still learning suspension. And then whenever we're done, we get into a little bit of aftercare, and that can be just a blanket and journaling and tea and just helping them come back into the room.
Amazing. That sounds super juicy. Definitely something for our listeners to consider. So you have got like all of these different amazing practices that you've created and that you're now sharing with the world, which is incredible. And, I also recognize that it's like, you're always learning and you're growing and you're bringing these, tools into your own relationships and practices. And, obviously, because I know you and Justin so well, and you guys are both a part of my life and also a part of this podcast, I'd love to hear more about how like your perspective, being a sensualist, self-love, and the tools that you use to embody those pieces, how those like show up in your relationship and help the relationship flourish as well.
Yeah, so I would say I'll compartmentalize it from like the beginning of our relationship, the middle, and the end. I think in the beginning of our relationship, learning to love myself made it significantly easier to learn how to receive his love. I think before him, I was in unhealthy relationships in both ways. There wasn't good communication and things like that. And so I think when you have a pattern of romantic relationships like that, it can be very easy to not trust or not surrender to the next partner, even if they are everything that you've ever wanted. And there was, those patterns that came up, or these fears. And it was really beautiful to be able to know myself well enough and love myself enough to say, oh no, this is actually not like anything you've ever experienced before. Open up, surrender, receive.
Yeah.
And it really, really, really had to come from me before I could properly receive it from Justin. And so that was, I was really, really, really grateful for that. And then in the middle portion of our relationship, we practice open relating, and it was really cool to see, when the emotions of jealousy come up, or unworthiness, or just intense emotions in general. It was really cool to be able to properly navigate through what I was thinking and feeling in a way that would help me properly communicate it to my partner. And I guess not even in open relating, but in any little thing. Oh, you left the toilet seat up, or the dishes, you didn't put them in, little things that people, the intense little things that people bicker in relationships. But learning to love myself and take care of myself and really have a good relationship with my emotions helped me share them with my partner in a very intentional and digestible way, especially because I'm very feminine and he's very logical. So if I were to come to him in the intensity or in the peak of my emotions, he wouldn't be able, it's not that he wouldn't receive it, it would just be more difficult for him to receive it because he's very logical. He's very masculine,
Yeah.
And I think being able to come to him, and I would quite literally come with a journal full of notes and points and what we need to shift and how, and things like that. And it was really, really, really beautiful for us to dive that deep into our conversations and what he needed and what I needed and how we're going to build together. And then now I would say it's an accumulation of everything. And when you're dating a really powerful person, I was thinking about this earlier too, we all want very powerful partners. We want partners that inspire us, that we can look up to, that ignite us from the inside out. And people like that want to feel the same way. Your partner also wants to be turned on by you and ignited by you and inspired by you. And I think that also comes from having that relationship with yourself. Do you have your own back? Do you inspire yourself? Do you ignite yourself? Can you be your own muse, or can you really hold the light that you also want to see in your partner? And I think that again comes from having an intimate, solid relationship with yourself. And that doesn't mean quote unquote perfect. It just means, are you your own friend? Do you like you? Can you hold your own emotions? Can you navigate through your own thoughts so that when you share yourself with others, not even your lover, it's raw, it's authentic, and it's digestible.
I love it, especially this piece on how can you expect yourself to inspire and create growth in your partner, which to me is the sacred duty of relating. How can you expect yourself to be able to do that for them if you're not even inspired by yourself, by what you are doing? And that's such a beautiful question to ask for those that are listening as single people who really want to have that relationship, or if they're in a relationship and it's feeling a little bit stagnant, where is there opportunity for you to inspire yourself to be your own muse? And that naturally becomes so juicy for the partnership as well. It's so cool. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool. So I'd love as well to chat a little bit about the retreat. Since you were there, and it was great to again see you and Justin. And I had spent time with Justin. That was our first time meeting in person.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, we had connected in the internet ethers a few times. And but it was our first time connecting in person. And then on top of it, we're in a multi-day container that's quite intense and juicy. And it was again, I had seen the highlight reel of your and Justin's relationship, but also Justin had given me I knew a little bit more because we were friends, and he'd share what was happening for you guys and some of your negotiations and figuring things out, and how inspiring it was. Anyways, the point I'm getting to is, but at the retreat, I got to see multi-day interaction, and it was just again you guys are such an asset, and I'm so grateful to have you both working beside both of you in this retreat. And I think that anyone that comes to the retreat benefits so greatly because your relationship is in it, and people get to see high vibe relating firsthand from the two of you. So anyways, I'd love if you could share a little bit about what was your experience like in that retreat? And yeah, we'll start with that.
I want to share something very quickly before I answer that question, but it does have to do with that question.
Okay.
So I think it's really beautiful because 9 times out of 10, when either one of us meet other people, we hear that very often, that our relationship is very beautiful and inspiring, and it gives people hope. And I mean, literally not exaggerating, Justin and I fall asleep laughing almost every night of like, how the fuck is this real? And how did we find each other? And I'm really glad that we did. Like, it's an every night ordeal. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was with an old friend of mine, and she was a few years older than me, and she was married and things of that nature. And somehow we got into the conversations of love. And she goes, you know, when you get older, you're going to have to settle. You're going to have to choose your 3 out of 5 things that you want in a person. And I was literally like I was like, 3 out of 5 things. Like, I'm getting 7 out of the 5 things.
Yes.
I would always tell, like, you know, the universe, God, consciousness, whatever's happening. Like, I want all the things that I want in a man, and all the things that I didn't even know I wanted in a man. And so I kind of just want to share that with like anybody who's listening, of like, your dream relationship is, I mean, you can equate to this too, is like literally there. It's literally possible. It's worth the wait. It's worth the effort. So yeah, every time I think of that, I'm like, there's no such thing as settling. Like, please don't settle for 3 out of 5 or 5 out of 5.
Agreed. Not only are you doing yourself a disservice in that circumstance, you're also doing the world a disservice. The world needs more really fucking inspirational couples. Like, as I said, when I was looking around at like, okay, I want to call in my person, let me see who is in my circle that I actually like look up to. And it was like so few. Like, I was like, there's like 3 couples that have like pieces of or 3 couples that I admire and I look up to. Right. And you were one of them. And I was like, that's not very many. That's not very many couples. The world needs it. And the world also needs people that are just like supported, abundantly supported. Like, I know that I'm able to do my work and to live in my purpose so much more effectively and authentically because of my relationship. Like, my relationship is taking me deeper into my ability to lead and to be of service. And I'm sure that, you know, it's the same for you. So don't settle. Your person is there. Just get really clear on what your 5 things are that you want, and then be open to the additional bonus 7 out of 5 that is totally accessible.
Absolutely. Back to the question, which was what was it?
What was your experience at the retreat?
Just share. Really, hold on, my septum ring got stuck to my nose ring. I'm so sorry.
Pause, everyone.
It was really beautiful for so many different reasons. So like on a selfish slash self-full reason, it was really beautiful to see my partner do something that I was so proud of him to do. Like that, before I even met Justin, I was like, I want a man who practices Tantra, who teaches Tantra, who's like in servitude to the world. And it was so beautiful to witness my man doing what both of you guys do so naturally. Like, it was just really beautiful to see 2 individuals like really living and breathing their lifestyle in a way to where you guys could just show up to the scene and like be able to present to everybody in such an organic and digestible and step-by-step way on, hey, this is your body. Hey, this is your breath. Hey, this is intimacy. Hey, this is communication. Hey, this is sex. And it was just really beautiful to be able to witness both of y'all in there. When it came to the practices, you know, he was the facilitator. So every once in a while I had the honor of being partnered with him. And there was a couple games that we got to play where I was like, okay, you know, this is fun. But there was the rose petal and the feather one. And I got to be partnered with him. And this isn't the first time that it's happened, but every time we go to a workshop or something and we're doing something sensual, like I literally burst into tears with how much love I have for this person, and just the ability to be able to touch and connect to my partner. And something else that kind of comes up too is, and it's a really beautiful reminder, is like a little cracking or an ache in my heart of like how often we touch our partners with this kind of like intention to receive or to get something back, versus let me just touch you and let you fully receive and let you fully feel my love without you needing to give anything back to me. And I thought that was a really beautiful experience. And things came up, I think, and I thought that was really cool too, like going into hearing information that I had already known and doing practice as I had already done, and still being open enough to be like, oh, there's still some stickiness there. Oh, there's a little trigger there. Oh, things like that. So I really, even though I was an assistant, I really felt like an attendee, even if I were to just sat and listen. It was a really beautiful, really powerful thing that you guys created.
Amazing. I'm super excited to have you back again with more of your fun Shibari, tools and things. And also Jaqueline did morning movement, which was great as well. I forgot to even mention that you did several days of morning movement, which is just so incredible. She's such a wizard with like embodiment, embodies, and finding sensuality, even in those like more uncomfortable sort of positions that we find ourselves in. So anyways, it was absolutely beautiful. You shared a little bit about watching Justin, and I absolutely loved that. And it kind of inspired this next question. I think that like there's a perception, and it's definitely a reality in some ways, that like dating a Daka or Tantra man or dating a Tantrika or Tantric woman is complicated. And in being a Tantrika and dating a regular man, or being a man that practices Tantra as a profession and does Tantra massage and dates other women, like that can be sticky. And it certainly has been in my relationships, especially my past relationships, but even in my current relationship. I mean, sharing with Andrew like the depths of my work was super vulnerable, and it was like he's amazing and is super supportive of my work and super celebratory of it. And like, it was not like a super easy thing for him to just like process. Like, it was like, it was definitely like still working through some of the constructs, so I'm just curious, what is it like for you to date a man that, is a Tantra professional, that does Tantra massage, things like that?
Yeah, I think more than anything else, it's beautiful. I've obviously have made love with Justin. I've received a Tantra massage from Justin. And like, even before him and I were like fully official, I remember thinking like more women need to be touched like this. Like, people need this tenderness, this presence, this gentleness, this permission. And I don't know that many women that have experienced that type of touch from men that they've been married with for years. So I think just in that, I mean, it was such an honor to share my man in that way, to know that I'm with somebody that loves women as much as I do, in the sense of the healing of women,
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful. And of course, there's been stickiness, but I've noticed that my stickiness comes more from like deep-seated insecurity than what he's actually doing. And I think a really big thing for me in supporting his work beyond like relational ego, if you will, is like, if he wasn't my partner, would I be proud of him? Like, would I be ecstatic and the answer is like, yes. If I met this dude and he was doing all these amazing things and helping all these women and doing Tantra massage and doing workshops, I'd be like, holy shit, like, I want to know more about you. Like, tell me anything. Can I receive it too? And so I think when I remove my attachment to him, if you will, and allow him to breathe and allow him to be and allow him to be the man that he presented himself to me as the first time we met, then it's an honor to be his woman. And it's an honor to like just stand by his side and witness him be in his gift, because he's very, very, very skillfully gifted, naturally intuitive on making people feel safe in their bodies and in their sexuality, in their exploration. And it's cool doesn't even encompass how it is, but it's a really cool experience to witness him and everything that he does.
I love that. And wow, just beautiful. Amazing. So I just have a couple of last questions for you to kind of wrap things up, unless you have anything else you want to add or feel inspired by. No, great. Okay. Well, my bonus question that I ask all my guests: what awakens your arrows? What turns you on? What makes you feel erotically alive?
What are those, all separate questions?
Kind of like all the same thing, but kind of depends on what angle you want to take.
Yeah, so anything to do with my mouth, humongous oral fixation, it ignites me. Jazz music ignites me. My band ignites me. Certain color palette, gold mirrors ignite. So many things ignite me. Connection ignites me. And I guess my arrows, I think whispering. I don't know if I'm answering this question correctly. Mouthings, whispering, and like closeness.
I loved it. I think you answered it exactly accurately as a feminine being. And I also again, I love your words, and you were using the word, it ignites me. It ignites me. And like, that's like turn on, like igniting is like is like I'm turned on, but like ignite is just so distinguished. I love it. I'm going to adopt that word and start using it more. Okay. And where can listeners find you and or support you? You're welcome to share more about your course or other offerings as well.
Yeah. They can find me on Instagram as my main, internet platform at the moment. So that's Jaquemich, JAQUEMICH. From there, they can also access Boundless, which is the course that I have on sensuality, somatic healing, and Shibari. And if anybody in the Miami area is curious about getting tied and having a very sensual and sensory experience, they're more than welcome to book a session through my Instagram as well.
Okay, amazing. I love it. Well, thank you again, Jaqueline, so much for joining me today. And I also want to express my gratitude to the listener. Thank you once more for opening yourself up to the idea of sacred sexuality. With so much gratitude and love, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Last little thing, want to zip in. I forgot. We talked a lot about the retreat. And if you're interested in the retreat as well, check out www.talktantratome.com/retreat. We have another one coming up in May and September, and I believe Jaqueline will be at both of them. So
beautiful. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.